Welcome to inspireWord, everyone. It's Thursday. Man, do we have a really special guest tonight. This woman, Judy Hehr, has a story that inspirationally will touch everybody and is exactly the type of message we want to bring to your living room when it comes to inspireWord. First, as always, thanks to Catholic Order of Foresters, Solidarity HealthShare, and Charity Mobile, the pro-life cell phone company, for being huge sponsors and supporting what we do and bringing these types of candid and very personal conversations to your living room. Again, Judy Hehr is a speaker, author, host, development coach. She can be booked on CatholicSpeakers.com for speaking to bring to any of your conferences or parishes or events, company or faith-based. Her story is absolutely incredible, and we're going to ask her to join us right now and bring her in so everyone can meet Judy Hehr. Judy, welcome to inspireWord.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here, Joe.
Well, we already know how contagious your energy is going to be, and I'm excited for everyone watching to get a taste of it. First,
I'm so glad.
We started right on time. We may have started exactly on time the first time ever in the last 20 that we've done, but what happened before this? It almost is amazing that we started literally at the right second. You had everything set up and it all went dark.
I think because my whole life, I always thought God was never showing up and he was never on time. And so now he proves once again to be who he is, and he does what he says. So a few hours ago, we had this amazing little test of technology. I set up my office as the place where I would be inviting people into my home this evening. And the minute we hung up, all the power in that room shut down. So here's what it's just, Joe, it is so indicative of my spiritual journey and the kingdom of God that just because things did not go the way we thought, expected, or believed them to be does not mean that he has not risen indeed. So here we are in another room of my home. So welcome to my home, my friend.
Well, thank you for inviting us in. And it just, like I always say, that our platform has become so popular globally because it feels like we're sitting in your house having a conversation with you. And so, Judy, can you jump right in for us? For those that may not be familiar with you and your backstory, can you kind of give us a quick overview of your life growing up, what happened later in life, and then how you became what you are? And just do a quick high-level overview, and then we'll dive into each element of it because your story is fascinating.
Okay, so Joe, what I will say, what just resonated with me immediately was when you said invitation. Thanks for accepting our invitation. And that reminded me of the Lord and his constant infinite mercy, how his love is irrefutable and his invitation is without an expectation, or without expectation or expiration. So the invitation of the Lord remained available to me. And it took me 37 years and 4 months before my yes finally meant yes. I said yes a lot of times, my friend, but my yes kind of meant no, sometimes meant yes. And so to sum it up, Joe, I think I have to say it's bankrupt at 20, a millionaire at 30, single, homeless, drug addicted at 22, a healthy mother of 4 at 34. Unlike some of your other guests, I have no PhD other than one in mercy and forgiveness and love. So college dropout, seminary graduate, almost divorced, and now thriving in a marriage where if it wasn't without my marriage, I don't think I'd have a chance of getting to heaven, my friend. So kind of the long and the short of it.
Wow. Well, can you dive in? You know, inspireWord is about helping folks get a message of faith, inspiration, but also overcoming challenges. And it was, for us, it was a reaction to the COVID-19 crisis where everyone's locked down, losing jobs, facing challenges they never thought they'd face. And I'm sure as a young girl, you never thought you would have faced a lot of the challenges you've overcome. Can you kind of take us back to set the stage to some of those dark places because I want to set the stage where just for folks to know how severe it got for you, how there probably felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Like you said, you became homeless, drug addicted, on and on. Can you kind of take us back to those times and what happened and give us a picture?
Yeah, so Joe, I was born and raised in a Catholic family, never missed a sacrament, never missed a holy day of obligation, ever, no matter whatever. We showed up on the scene when it came to our Catholic faith. The disconnect for me, and I have, it's so important that I say this is my perception of my life, and people who lived under the same roof might have seen it differently. So we attended Mass. I went to Catholic school, received all the sacraments, and somewhere there was a profound disconnect between theology and reality. So where the rubber met the road and where God showed up on the scene was not my experience. I'd like to say that I had a case of mistaken identity, not knowing who I was or to whom I belonged. As a result of many abuses, as a young girl at a young age, I further disconnected from my God-given identity, believing that there was something wrong with me as a result of being abused in the ways that I was. And I took that into through my youth and into my teenage years, being unsought, uncertain, and unseen by age 18. So up until age 18, Joe, I got to tell you, I did all the right things for all the wrong reasons. I vied for attention and position in my family, similar to Joseph. He got thrown in a well. That didn't work out well for him. So I vied for attention and affection, always wanting to be seen, to be sought after, and to matter. What I didn't know is I was always that the Lord in his mercy and grace was such a perfect gentleman that he would wait for as long as it took for me to love him back the way he loved me. So when I was 18, that was a challenging time for me. As I was uncertain and unseen, my mother passed away. And at that point, I had suffered an eating disorder. Addiction was not even on anywhere in my upbringing. Was there some lack of control? I felt like I could control everything until I was 18 and my mother passed away. Joe, I had no idea the profound opportunity at that time. I could feel the consolation of the Lord in that desolation. And rather than run to him, believing he was who he said, I ran away from him. And that started a path of destruction and a pit of sin that lasted 5 years, that led me farther than I ever expected to go and cost me more than I ever expected to pay.
Wow. And can you kind of touch on during those times your mindset, because folks are reaching points in life today with suicide as a result, or they're having mental issues. Can you talk about that when you were going through that, and maybe just touch on again how the homelessness maybe crept in and you had experimented with, let's just say, not so healthy substances? I'm trying
That's
to.
a nice way to say it, Joe. That's a nice way to say it.
Since we have you, it'd be great if you could, because you are a development coach, and we want to get into that in a little bit, but what would you share for those watching that might be currently challenged with mental illness or addiction, and what was it like for you, and what eventually got you out of it?
So, Joe, I was powerless, mostly because I was prayerless. And so the root of addiction for me reared itself as a direct result of the pain that I endured as a result of the loss of my mother. The trajectory of my life changed the day that my mother passed away. And so to numb that pain, I saw, like I always say, that I loved everything that couldn't love me back. And so I loved anything that couldn't love me back. And so I sought anything that would numb the pain that I was in. And it did get so bad. And I did create so much pain for those around me, and disappointment and betrayal and lack of trust, that ending my life seemed like the best option for everyone at that time. And so those thoughts are real. And when we don't live in the truth of who we are and who God is, Joe, it is a place of isolation. It is a place of desolation. And it's hard to see the light when like scripture says, when the light has become dark, how dark will the darkness get?
Right, exactly. And you're a walking example of that. Yes. Someone can go through what you did and still come back, and look at you today, vibrant, full of faith, just It's just the way God works, and you're inspiring many from all over the world and speaking nationally, internationally. If you're just joining us as we're seeing the counters going up, we're with Judy Hehr today. Judy has an incredible story of overcoming many things, including homelessness, addiction. She's been there, done that. She's an author. She's a public speaker. She's a podcast host. Judy, so setting the stage now, folks kind of understand what you've been through, where you've come, but let's dive in. There's been a result of your experiences and that of a book called Shattered, correct?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that real quick and the inspiration when writing that, and maybe just walk us down the path of when that first entered your mind that you would write a book, and then why you wrote it?
Joe, I can tell you that nothing that has unfolded in my life was ever part of my plan. It is just the way God works, how he can bring beauty from ashes, and he creates opportunities out of obstacles, and he takes this mangled mess that we create of our life, and he makes it into this beautiful witness so he can show off and get all the glory. So that path that I was on, Joe, lasted 5 years. And here was the thing, when you said, it was so kind the way you said this, that I did some not so great substances, I think the way you said it. My spiritual companion taught me early on that you just have to say you broke all the commandments. So I used to want to list all my sins, because part of the misconception was that I had become what I had done, right? That is the biggest misconception, because God spreads apart who we are to what we do as two totally separate things. And he sees our heart in a way that oftentimes is unbelievable to some of us. And so after breaking all the commandments, and part of it is I smile as I say that, and not because I'm proud of that, is because despite all of the breaking of the commandments repeatedly, I stand here as someone who is chosen, forgiven, adopted, and redeemed. Whether anybody believes it or not, I believe it, I receive it, I perceive it, because God is who he says he is. So 37 years of chasing success, attention, everything that the world said would bring happiness. Joe, I had everything the world said would bring satisfaction and contentment. And there I was, prayerless and powerless. And now, as a result of my success, now I was just very self-righteous. And so the Lord in his infinite mercy just brought my kingdom. Like I always say, it was a slave in my kingdom to a servant in his, because I just kept building this kingdom that was rooted in selfishness and prayerlessness and powerlessness. And the Lord in his I don't know, I think at some point it was Mary who brought me back to the church. We'll save that for a minute. Anyway, when my mother died, I left the church for 20 years. 20 years.
Wow.
And I didn't need God, Joe, because I had everything. So who needs God? Because it's easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than it is to get a rich man to heaven. And every time I just kept sinning and sinning, the Lord kept saying, someday Judy is going to scream at people on inspireWord about what I do in the lives of those people who submit and surrender to me once and for all. So he brought my marriage to the ground. After 15 years of marriage, he allowed that to implode as only God could, and brought me to my knees. And Joe, let me tell you, when God is all you have, you find out that God is all you need. So I had this beautiful family, 4 healthy children, and a little shocker for me, my friend, was after the way I lived my life and the pit of sin that I found myself in.
Yep.
The fact that something so pure, my 4 children, could come from something so impure. And I got to tell you, if anyone ever told me that I was responsible not only for birthing them, but getting them to heaven, Joe, I would have never had any children, because it was all I could do to get myself right, if that makes sense. You follow me?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow,
so
absolutely.
37 years old, marriage brought to the ground, and by the grace of God and my parents, my dad and his new wife, who I consider my mother today, they stepped in and spoke of a beautiful marriage ministry called Retrovi. Joe, I will tell you that it was the Retrovi ministry that brought God back to the center of our marriage, where he was never even a part of. Well, we didn't invite him in. he was definitely a part of it, Joe. But we didn't invite him in. And we went to Retrovi, which is a Catholic marriage ministry for troubled marriages. And Joe, there wasn't a word to describe what my husband and I went to. Troubled would be an understatement. I'm talking a train wreck, the ultimate betrayal, the unforgivable. And God said, let me do what only I can do with your broken heart that was shattered in 50 billion pieces.
Wow.
That was the greatest gift God ever gave me, was to implode my marriage.
Wow. Judy, you are a true testament to real life, inspireWord style messages that we're trying to bring to people. You're real. You've been through it. You've done the walk, and you're turning such negative, what would put most people into just, who knows where. You've turned it into an incredibly positive situation now where you're inspiring others. I noticed that you have a rosary around your.
Yes.
Tell us now. You said you had no prayer life at one point, which many of us do. I mean, I've even went through that whole phase where you don't make prayer a priority in your life. I think a lot of people fall through that. To talk about the rosary, was it part of you coming back, or was it? How did that affect your life?
Isn't it always about that? Let me just tell you, I did pray, Joe. I prayed for like great parking spots. I prayed for things like that. That's what to get to the front of the Starbucks line. That was the extent of my prayer, my friend. It was always self-serving, never life-giving. As a matter of fact, I used to think I was the Trinity, me, myself, and I. So now I know it ain't me. Anyway, we got married in the Catholic Church because we had to. And I will never forget where we knelt in front of what I considered, and I don't mean any disrespect when I say this, when I stood, my husband and I, on the day of our wedding, knelt before the statue of Mary. I remember it like it was yesterday, Joe, that we knelt, and I said, looking forward, how long do we have to kneel in front of this statue? Okay. Now, any of you mothers out there, you know that you forgive the unforgivable with your children. And Mary was all in her beautiful cloak and mantle saying, you're going to need me before I'm going to need you. And someday I will bring you back to this church. And so the day, April 17th, 2003, when the Lord allowed our marriage to be imploded, a friend of mine handed me a cassette tape. I said, what is this? And she said, it will bring you consolation. Joe, can I tell you, it was the Divine Mercy Chaplet.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Joe, that is when I fell in love with Mary. Mary who I put on the shelf, Mary who I ignored. And like any good mother comes a running when her kids say that they need her. And she led me, Joe. I will tell you, it is not only the sacraments, it is the scriptures, and it is all the seeds that got planted in my Catholic upbringing that ultimately, some fell on rocky ground, some got eaten away, some washed away. The reality was they all came to fruition. And the Blessed Mother, through the Divine Mercy Chaplet, made visible to me, conceivable, perceivable to me, the divine mercy of Jesus.
Wow.
And she led me. I always say she's the bait to Jesus, Joe. Like, you just follow her. She's going to take you right to her son. And that's what she did. That's what she did, Joe.
Judy, your passion and love for your faith and what you're doing is so it's contagious. And I'm sure people are at home smiling right now, probably crying and smiling with you, hearing your story. If you're joining us, we're with Judy Hehr, inspirational speaker. You can book her on CatholicSpeakers.com, as well as reach out to her through her websites, which we'll get to soon, and how to find her on social media. Also go to inspireWord.com and please sign up and share this message, share this conversation with all your friends and family who may not have been able to tune in live tonight. And make sure you chat questions in the side there as we're coming down to the last 15 minutes of the half hour, which, Judy, you and I joked about it was going to go fast. These 30 minutes go so fast when we have vibrant, exciting people like you on here entertaining us. Now that we set the stage for your background, can you talk about what a development coach is, and with your incredible experience of been there, done that, again, homeless, drug addicted, mental, going through depression, everything. How have you turned that into a positive, and how did that lead to becoming a development coach, and what is that exactly?
So, Joe, I'll first tell you that the Lord called me into a space of speaking when I was in the seminary after 4 years. And it was evident to me that I was given a passion to speak and share with people what God can do with a heart that's willing to submit and surrender. And so, of course, as God would have it, he just opened up door after door, and I had opportunities. First, they put me in the basement of the church, just to see how that went. And then next thing you know, the Lord just kept creating more and more opportunities. And one I will never forget is when we finally connected and you put me on your circuit with people whose sandals I ain't worthy to untie, people that I learned from, that I came back to my faith because of. And now I'm standing on a stage just loving all over them for leading me back. So I would go and I would yell at people about Jesus. Joe, my kids are like, this is your job. You just drive around and yell at people. And yes, that's exactly what I do. And Joe, here's what happened. Here's what I encountered in our beautiful Catholic Church. I encountered the benefit of giving a testimony and bearing witness to tell our story for God's glory. That is evident, and we do it now as a church better than we ever did. What I realized, Joe, so soon in that journey was inspiration is temporary. We get inspired in the moment and we're brought to the edge of a cliff and it's like, oh wait, things can be better. They don't feel better. How do we make them better? And so I prayed, Lord, how can I help people and serve them in ways that they would know that the wisdom of God is within them, the grace they need will sustain them, and they could find change in their relationships and transformation that we all desire, Right. And the coaching is what came up as that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where what we talk about is brought about. And so I went to a school called IPAC for certification and becoming a professional certified coach. And Joe, when I'm not screaming at people like this all over the world, I get to journey one-on-one with people, one-on-one with individuals, with couples, with parish staff, with organizations, and help what it is that they most desire and deserve become a reality. So right. I'll tell you, Joe, we live in the past. We are not living like we're forgiven. And we wear this beautiful badge of Catholic guilt and shame, which is never, ever from God, Joe. And so I help people put that stuff, clean it off. Because otherwise we cannot give the divine mercy. Only we can give it until the degree that we have received it, my friend.
Right. Oh my goodness. Let me cut in here real quick, Judy.
Please do.
We do have a question over one of our platforms from a Tiffany S. in Tennessee. Tiffany's, let me read this real quick and paraphrase it. I have a child that's potentially struggling with mental hardship and is battling with drugs. What would be your advice to me as a parent on how to reach them?
So number one, I believe that the prayers, God inhabits the praises of his people. And so we will praise him in advance for what he is doing in the life of your child that you don't even know about. And how you can best support is to love, is to pour out more love, more and more love. And that doesn't look like enabling. It doesn't look like controlling. What it looks like is, I love you. I support you. I seek to understand you and journey with you out of the darkness and into the light. And whoever that person is who is asking a question, anyone that's listening can call my number directly, and I would talk to anyone and everyone. I'm not an advice giver, Joe. What I believe is this beautiful mother knows exactly what she needs to do, and the wisdom of God is within her. And if I could help her figure out what that is, I would do it. So you never give up hope, because we are Easter people, my friend, and we want Easter Sunday without a Good Friday. And that person who asked that question is in a Good Friday place. And I will just remind her that it is always darkest before the dawn. And I will be praying for that person that was just referenced.
It's beautifully said, Judy. Absolutely. I mean, everyone's hurting. Everyone has problems in life, and none of us are immune to that. So these types of words and inspiration really help them. Do you by chance have a copy of your book nearby, Shattered?
I do. I do.
Where can folks, obviously they come find you on catholicspeakers.com, everything, but where can they find your book Shattered, and where can they find you on social media?
So they can find me at judyhehr.com. They can purchase my book through that platform or amazon.com. Do not let the cost of the book stop anyone from reaching out. If you need to get it, receive it as a gift, it would be my gift to put that in your hands. It does not only share my personal journey away from the kingdom of God and back to the Catholic Church. It incorporates my husband's perspective of being married to someone like me and our children's perspective of what it means to grow up with everything and have zero faith, and then recognize that their mother and father have forgiven the unforgivable, and that God has created something beautiful out of that mess. So it's an amazing story for God's glory.
That's gorgeous. Well, we're going to hop on at catholicspeakers.com and tell everyone watching that you can message Judy through inspireWord.com, where all the other conversations are, and send us a message. If you can't pay for the book and you need it, we will also hop in and help make sure you get Judy's book Shattered. So please send us messages and sign up. Judy, when you wrote that book, what is your ultimate goal of hope with it? What do you hope it does? What is the ultimate achievement for that book?
That's it, Joe. You said it. It's hope. It's bringing hope. It's helping people realize that with God, nothing is impossible, because with God, all things are possible. It is never too late. You know, God is faithful regardless of our unfaithfulness. He is faithful in plan B. When the scenery changes and it wasn't what we believed it should be, wished it could be, or wanted it to be, the reality is he is who he says. He is who he says, and no matter what we go through, he allows us to grow through it. And our beautiful Catholic faith and the sacraments and the crucifix, I never realized, Joe, that the cross is a plus sign, and it doesn't always deliver us entirely like it did me in many cases. But I'll tell you, if it doesn't deliver us from our suffering, it gives us the strength to endure it. Right. It absolutely does that.
Absolutely. And we can just see in your face and your voice, you know. Judy, we're so thankful that you made time to allow us to come into your living room and invite us to network in. Is there anything else you'd like to say? When words of inspiration, maybe how have you been using this time with family in lockdown? Maybe you and your husband.
So that's really interesting, because we have 4 children and only one of them came home. And it's so interesting because all 4 of our children are typically navigating a pandemic as they would as if there was no pandemic. Okay. And I'll just say that without any condemnation, but because there's a pandemic, people just don't all of a sudden become somebody that they're not showing up as. I say that with such love. And the reason I say that is because my kids would say to me, Mom, sometimes you look more like Judas than Jesus. And maybe this is one of those moments. However, what I believe about this pandemic, Joe, more importantly than the time that my husband and I have spent together, is that this is the year of 2020. I'm not sure if it was Dr. Mary Healy or Dr. Carol Rosa who pointed out that 2020 is perfect vision. Wow. If we could see clearly God's plan for our life, if at the other side of this pandemic, things were brought into such a focus that we could perceive and conceive and move to a place of believing and ultimately receiving what God has for us, then wouldn't all of this pain and suffering and death, I don't want to say it would ever be worth it, but there's something to be glorified about God at the end of this. So my man and I, here's Bob. I bring him on a stick. Yeah, this is Bob. And what we're doing different, Joe, is a whole lot of nothing. Meaning we're doing what we always did. We're showing up in ways that we always have. And because of what we have experienced in our own journey, we never doubt that God is who he says, and he will make something incredible out of all of this. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's without pain and suffering.
Judy Hehr, God bless you for the work you're doing. Here in the call. and just, being an inspiration to the rest of us after all you've been through. You and Bob will be in our prayers.
Good. We need them. We totally need them.
Please pray for everyone, me and everyone else as well on the phone. Thank you for everyone tuning in. And Judy, we're definitely going to have you on again for more hot topics. You've been
Joe, I promise if you have me on again, I'll answer at least one of the questions you asked me. I just get so excited to talk about Jesus.
You did great. Again, everybody watching, please send us a message to inspireWord.com to get Judy's book. We'll help you get it. Even if you can't pay for it, we'll make sure that you get it in your hands. Judy, thanks again for the inspiration you give to the world. God bless you, and we'll look forward to seeing you out on stage.
Thank you, my friend. God bless.